Good afternoon, this is Sage and welcome to News Beyond the Markets, a special show that will get you all the news that matters to kickstart your afternoon. And first up on the News Beyond the Markets is a detailed report on scams by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, or ACCC. Last year, scammers stole close to $34 million collectively from people who identified as culturally and linguistically diverse, or the CALD group of people. Also, people with disabilities and Indigenous Australians were targeted. Figures from the ACCC's latest Targeting Scams report, released earlier this week, shows losses to the CALD community represented a 60% increase compared to 2019 across 11,700 reports. And ACCC Deputy Chair Delia Rickard said that they saw a big increase in losses to scams affecting culturally and linguistically diverse communities. Some members of CALD communities suffered higher losses on average than the overall community, accounting for 1 in every $8 lost. Unfortunately, scheming scammers try to target people who, by virtue of their background, disadvantage, language skills or disability, may experience vulnerability and be more likely to fall for their tricks. Investment scams were responsible for $6.3 million in losses, the most costly type of scam for the CALD community. This was followed by threat-based scams, and people from CALD communities lost $6 million to these scams, which is up 248% from 2019. And the Chinese authority scam is a common threat-based scam which cost people from the CALD community $4.3 million last year. These scammers impersonate Chinese authorities and accuse their victims of committing a crime, such as sending a parcel with illegal goods like fake credit cards, and threaten them with a deportation or arrest unless they paid money or provided their personal information. And Ms. Rickard said that they received over 2,000 reports about Chinese authority scams in total last year, with $7 million lost, and almost a quarter of these were from people with a CALD background. This shows that these scams continued to disproportionately target Mandarin speakers in Australia. Other threat-based scams involved scammers impersonating Australian government departments, such as the Australian Tax Office saying you will be arrested for unpaid tax, and the Department of Home Affairs threatening to arrest you and have you deported. Ms. Rickard said that Australian governments will never threaten with immediate arrest, and one must always stop and think about who you might be dealing with. And if you're not sure whether the call is legitimate, hang up and call the organisation directly using contact details you independently source. Scams also impacted Indigenous Australians in 2020, and last year's Scamwatch received 3,455 reports, with over $2 million in losses from Indigenous Australians. While the losses were 4% lower than those in 2019, the reports increased by nearly 25%. The most financially damaging scams for Indigenous communities were dating and romance scams, followed by investment scams and online shopping scams. People who identified as having disabilities made more than 7,500 reports to Scamwatch and lost close to $10 million to scams last year. Dating and romance scams accounted for about half of these losses, and more than 1/3 of reporters also said they had lost personal information. Meanwhile, 25% of people without disability reported losing personal information as well. The ACCC has translated the Little Black Book of Scams into 10 languages to help the community understand and avoid scams. And more information on scams is available on the Scamwatch website, including how to make a report and where to get help. The ACCC regularly engages in Indigenous outreach programs and shares scam warnings on the Your Rights Mob Facebook page. Consumers can follow at Scamwatch_gov on Twitter and subscribe to Scamwatch radar alerts. So please stay safe from scammers, and it is time now for a short break. We will be right back with more news updates on News Beyond the Markets.
This is Andy Lou broadcasting from Kalkine Media Studio in Australia, and I'll be hosting the new Kalkine Wellness Show. The half-hour show will cover topics from how wellness as a concept has become even more significant during COVID, to how becoming vegan may improve your health, and much more. We are excited to showcase our live streaming show to our audience of millions overseas and in Australia. Tune in to Kalkine TV and join me.
Welcome back, Sage here. You're watching News Beyond the Markets. And moving on to some good news for the New Zealand housing sector. The government has confirmed that new buildings will be exempt from planned changes to the tax treatment of residential investment property today. And public consultation is now open on details of the proposals, which stop interest deductions being claimed for residential investment properties other than new builds. And the government's goal is to encourage more sustainable house prices by dampening investor demand for existing house stock and to improve affordability for first home buyers. Finance Minister Grant Robertson said that the proposals released today will help to achieve that goal, and this is part of the government's move to cool the property market. A more sustainable housing market supports more first home buyers to get into their home, but also protects the recovering economy. And Revenue Minister Avid Parker said that the proposal to exempt property development and new bills should help boost supply. The move will help in channeling investment towards increasing housing stock and away from direct competition with the first home buyers and owner-occupiers for existing housing stock. Generally, it is proposed that residential property would be considered a new build if it is a self-contained dwelling with its own kitchen and bathroom and that has received a code compliance certificate. The government is also considering whether subsequent owners should also be exempt from the interest changes and for how long any exemption might last. The consultation on the same closes on the 12th of July 2021 and the measures will be introduced into Parliament later this year but will apply only from the 1st of October 2021. The consultation document proposes that deductions for interest expenses on residential properties will be restricted from the 1st of October 2021 and interest deductibility on a mortgage on a residential investment property acquired before 27th March 2021 will be gradually phased out between 1st October 2021 and 31st of March 2025. Non-grandparented interest would immediately cease to be deductible from 1st October 2021. Interest deductibility on a residential investment property acquired on or after the 27th of March would immediately cease to be deductible from the 1st of October 2021 unless an exemption applies, and property development and new builds would be exempt from the interest limitation rules. In addition, new builds would be subject to a 5-year bright line test rather than the 10-year test, and non-residential properties, for example commercial or industrial properties, would not be subject to the new rules. Also excluded would be employee accommodation, farmland, care facilities such as hospitals, convalescent homes, nursing homes and hospices, commercial accommodation such as hotels, motels and boarding houses, retirement villages and rest homes. The main home would not be affected by the new rules, and interest related to any income earning use of an owner-occupier's main home, such as a flatting situation, would continue to be deductible. Community housing providers will not be affected by the interest limitation rules if they are charities or otherwise tax exempt. The government also proposes to exempt Kenya Ora and its wholly owned subsidiaries from the interest limitation rules. We're just going to take another short break. We'll be right back after this. Property by Kalkine. Looking for a dream home? Well, that may sound easy, but it isn't. And from looking for a property that is the right fit for you in terms of cost and other factors, to zeroing down on the right mortgage plan, there are various aspects to consider. And for the latest lowdown in the property market, tune in on Kalkine TV with me, Sage. I will give the latest updates on the property market as well as real estate stocks to help you make the right decision. Keep watching Property with Kalkine. Welcome back. You're watching News Beyond the Markets, and now an update on a ransomware attack that hit the meat industry. JBS USA, subsidiary of Brazilian firm JBS SA, said in a statement on Wednesday that the company paid an $11 million ransom in a cyber attack that disrupted much of its North American and Australian operations. The world's largest meat producer cancelled shifts at its US and Canadian meat plants last week after the cyber attack had threatened to disrupt food supply chains and inflate food prices. The Brazilian meatpackers arm in the United States and Pilgrim's Pride Corp, a US chicken company mostly owned by JBS, lost less than 1 day's worth of food production. The company said that third parties are carrying out forensic investigations and no final determinations have been made. And though no company, customer or employee data was compromised in the attack, a source familiar with the matter said last week that a Russian-linked hacking group is behind the cyber attack against JBS. As per the sources, the Russian-linked cyber gang goes by the name R-Evil and Sodinokibi. The cyber attack followed one last month by a group which ties in to Russia on the Colonial Pipeline, and the largest fuel pipeline in the United States, in fact, which disrupted fuel delivery for several days in the US southeast states. FBI Director Christopher Wray said that the agency was investigating about 100 different types of ransomware, many of which trace back to people living in Russia. And thanks for your time watching that report. That is all from News Beyond the Markets today, but please stay tuned with Kalkine TV for more live market updates and news. Sage signing off.